welcome you to yet another Recruit My Mom webinar. We hold these monthly, and we just enjoy being able to give back to our Recruit My Mom community. And I'm so thankful this morning that we are yet here to talk about resilience. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Phillipa Geard. I'm the founder and CEO of Recruit My Mom and RecruitAGraduate. I've got a phenomenal team that have helped me to be able to build and create this business called Recruit My Mom and RecruitAGraduate, which makes such a positive impact in South Africa. And I'm very proud of my team. So thank you to Esther, who's in the background of today's webinar. She's administrating for us. And to the rest of my team, just always so grateful for them. So this morning, our topic is family resilience. And our guest speaker this morning is Chantal Ferreira. Chantal Ferreira is a wife and a mom of a beautiful baby boy. She's the managing director of xpand South Africa, which specializes in training, consulting, and coaching. She finalized her PhD on the resilience of marriage in March 2021 and is passionate about serving women in leadership and guiding people to a more holistic way of living to reach their full potential. So we are honored to have Chantal with us today to talk about a very important topic, which is family resilience. So Chantal, welcome to our Recruit My Mom webinar this morning. And to kick us off, don't you want to tell us what resilience means?
Morning, Phillipa. Thank you for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see such a big group online interested on the topic of family resilience. I think the time we find ourselves in this is actually a crucial topic. So maybe first of all, what is resilience? And then we can go to family resilience, right? So I know there was a previous workshop with one of my colleagues, a webinar that Recruit My Mom did with Gareth, where he did talk about resilience. So I'm not going to go into all of that again, but I'm just going to give you the quick definition of what resilience is, and then you will understand how we got to the family resilience part. So if you would allow me to quickly share my screen, sometimes it's easier to remember things when we see them in front of us as well, right? What is resilience? So as xpand, as a company, we've done a lot of research on resilience. There's a lot of different definitions. This is what we came up with. We believe resilience is a competency, which implies that it's something you can develop, right? A competency is something you can grow or nurture or develop. And it is the energy and capacity to handle life. So here we have fear, setbacks, critique, trauma, change, to handle all of these things. And the key is to handle them in a healthy and a meaningful way. So that's the definition of resilience in general. Phillipa, I think this is similar to what Gareth shared with you guys the previous time.
That's correct, Chantal, and thank you. That's a very helpful definition of what resilience is. And I think what I see here to handle fear, setbacks, critique, change and stress, trauma and crises. And I just think of the last 2 years that we've all faced, having faced a pandemic and what's going on in South Africa. And I just think how many of those we've all had to handle. And so I think today's topic of, how do we as individuals, but mostly as families, handle these in a healthy way is a vital and important topic. So just moving on then from this not being the individual resilience, but family resilience, what is family resilience and why is it so important in society today, Chantal?
I think you already partly answered the question, right? The pandemic placed a lot of pressure, not only on individuals, but on families. And these things we need to handle is part of life, right? No one is excluded from it. So the reason why family resilience is very important is because of the challenges we are facing. And so family resilience, we would define the same as a competency or an energy or a capacity of the family as a unit to handle all of these challenges in a healthy and a meaningful way. And so it's not only about the mom or the teenager, it's not only about the individuals, but actually as a family unit, how are we as a system almost handling the challenges we face? And then I would take one step further, just to say family resilience also lies within the crucial word of oneness or togetherness, or some research talks about the we space. So it's not only the unit of the family that has the ability to deal with these challenges, but how are these challenges actually affecting us as a unit, our togetherness, our sense of belonging to a family? How is that effective? And if we are a resilient family, it says that all of these challenges, change, stress, the pandemic, all of these things, if we are resilient, then it means that we have the ability to protect that sense of togetherness as a family and not to allow these things to affect that. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. That does make sense. I think, Chantal, could you just give us a definition of family? Because I think so many people have different definitions of family.
Yeah, I think that's good. For me, personally, family is any place where you belong. It's relationships that are so close to who you are as a person, they root you almost into society, right? So for some people, family could be spouses. For some people, family is second marriage with my kids and your kids. For some people, family is my neighbors. It's my community where I belong. So it is the system of relationships where you root yourself in. That's how I would define it.
That's great. And I love the word togetherness. You know, I think I think of our nation, you know, which sometimes feels so split, but the power that there is in togetherness and unity and unification. And I love that word, togetherness. So Chantal, just moving on then from the definition of family resilience, could you expand for us? So, you know, what are the building blocks? How do we get there? You know, what do we need to do in order to have a resilient family?
Yeah, so that is a big question, and it has a big answer, a loaded answer to it. So as Xpand, we obviously do trainings like anything from a 2-hour workshop to a full day workshop where we take people through how to build their family resilience. So bear with me, I'm going to try my best to give you the nuggets, at least in our time together today. So basically, the first thing to understand is, and I share again my screen, is that resilience is a system. So there's a whole bunch of factors that is interacting with one another to make up resilience. So if this picture maybe helps you to remember it well. For us as Xpand, we've identified social and structural resources as important elements of resilience, but then there's also 7 factors that make up your resilience. And the 7 factors are usually the things we can improve or intentionally work on or put in place to try and build our resilience intentionally. So maybe we can open up a short discussion on the 7 factors. Phillipa, you need to guide me in terms of time as well. But if you keep this picture in the back of your head, then I think you will be able to follow the rest of the conversation well.
That's great, Chantal. So yes, if you could touch on those, you know, what are the building blocks for family resilience? And you know, we've got plenty of time, so let's, you know, I think it's really good for our audience to be able to hear what it is that they need to be thinking about when trying to build in resilience into our homes and into our families. And I think that we probably have predominantly moms that have joined us today. So key individuals within a family structure who will be looking for some tools this morning on how to build resilience within a family structure. So yes, Chantal, I'd love to hear those building blocks.
Okay, great. So those of you that did attend the previous discussion with Gareth on resilience will remember that he also elaborated on the 7 competencies. And I want to really encourage all the moms in the room today. So Phillipa did quickly mention I have a little baby boy, totally spoiled and blessed to have him. He is only mere 4 months old, so my resilience has been tested this year on a new level. I have a lot of respect for all of the moms in the room, and especially if you're juggling that role of motherhood with your work responsibilities, right? Then the conversation gets interesting. So I think I'll start off the conversation on the 7 competencies by really challenging each mom in the room to say it starts with your individual resilience. I've just realized the impact it has if there is a healthy mom in the house. Whether you are a single mom, whether you have a spouse that's supporting you, whether you have other family members like a sister or someone living with you, the bottom line is you as the mom, you have a crucial role to play in the whole system of the family resilience. So if you did not manage to catch the previous workshop, or if you just want to invest in your own resilience, then you can read our book. Because I do think if you invest as a mom into your individual resilience, it will automatically improve the resilience of the family system as well. So the 7 competencies, first of all, starts with what we call reconciled past. So am I at peace with my story? Something, another part of my work, and except for being a life coach, I'm also a counselor, and I deal with so many moms that saying, you know, there's some things in my life I just need to accept. This is my story. I'm struggling to work through this. I need to forgive. I need to own my story in both my career, professional capacity, as well as my family role. So the first challenge also for a family is how do we own our story? So what we've done is we've taken the 7 competencies, individual resilience competencies, and we've changed them or tailor-made them for families into I am sentences. And so the first I am sentence for reconciled past will be I can feel. Now, if you imagine working with small kids, then this is an easy sentence for them to catch. I can feel is the first competency you want to develop in your kids. Philippa, any questions on that or comments on competency number 1?
Could you give us an example? When you say children can grasp it, and you know, so is yeah, maybe you could just give us a practical example of that so that it comes alive in terms of what you mean, Chantal?
Yeah, so something I do in our house and when I work with families is to help kids to express their emotions. So when they talk about how was my day, to say, I can feel happy about my good test results I had today, or I can feel that I maybe made a mistake in how I dealt with my friend today. So it's really for them owning their emotions. So we're saying as adults, it's owning our story, right? Which is the same principle you apply to teaching your kids, but you have to break it down into something simpler. So it could be a day-to-day thing in discussing how was my day, what emotions do I experience, how do I own that, and then what is a healthy way to deal with those emotions. Is part of reconciled past as an I can feel element of resilience.
Great. I think that's really helpful. I think about you talking about reconciled past is that one of the best descriptions I'd heard about unforgiveness is that unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting somebody else to die. Yeah. And when we don't reconcile our past well, is that we can live with bitterness, which is one of the factors possibly that breaks down resilience.
Yes, definitely. And you can imagine how that breaks down or does damage to family relationships. Because remember, we're talking now about family resilience. So it's not only the unforgiveness that I'm carrying as an individual, but what is the effect of that in my family relationships? Because sometimes, it's so easy for us to say, forgive when we look outside of our home. So forgive my boss, forgive my sister, forgive. But inside our homes, we also sometimes do things to offend and hurt each other. And we also need to forgive in that sphere so that we can protect that sense of togetherness inside our family. So definitely, Philippa, a very good point.
That's great. I love that. Great. So that's number 1. What's number 2, Chantal?
Number 2, we call for the adult resilience reconciled past. And the way how we simplify this for the kids is I have hope. And this is something I think over the past 2 years, especially in dealing with teenagers, Philippa, me and you touched on that conversation. I've also been working with teams. We do a career guidance program for teenagers to do subject choices and career choices. And I've just picked up the teams are really out of their depth with this pandemic that's going around. It's almost like they're not sure how do they find hope in the midst of this chaos, because they cannot even make a career choice knowing that in 5 years that will still be an option for them, because everything changes so quickly. So the second one is I have hope.
Could you just, okay, so I know because we've got RecruitAGraduate and we have many youths that are facing unemployment. It's a real issue. So how does the statement, I have hope, how does that work in terms of building resilience? Could you just explain that a little bit more, Chantal?
Yeah, so it actually touches on how am I realistically optimistic about life. So when I'm faced with a challenge, to be realistic about what the challenge entails, but to maintain my optimism. Right, so it's not necessarily being blue-eyed optimist, always thinking life is perfect, but being very realistic about the challenges that we face, but knowing that I can always have hope that there is a solution, there is a way out. And when we remember the picture of the 7 competencies, competency number 2 and number 4 actually works well together, because 2 is I have hope and 4 is I can do this. So 4 is we look at what is my skills in life, what do I actually have in my hands with which I can address the challenge that I'm facing. And so we connect those topics to help people to find hope again, especially the young people.
Great. Okay, so I have hope. So I can feel and I have hope. And then number 3.
Number 3, solution orientation, is I can do this. So here we talk about people's ability to solve problems. Now, again, if we bring this back to a family, it's nice, all the parents in the room, the moms in the room, we always want to do things for our kids to make life easier for them, right? So we like, I will carry their pain, or I will take on this difficult decision. And maybe sometimes we need to challenge ourselves to say, how do I allow them to go through this challenge so that they can develop their own problem-solving ability instead of me trying to make life easier for them, right? So that they can show for themselves, I can do this. It's like going through this challenge and realizing, oh, wow, I didn't think I had the capacity, but actually I can do more than what I thought I'm capable of. So as maybe to not always make life as simple for our families, but to allow them to go through challenges themselves so that they can prove to themselves they can do this.
That's such an interesting point. I remember reading a book on confidence and building confidence in families, and the ability for a child to problem solve and to find their own solution is one of the core factors for building confidence in a child as well. So it's very interesting that this is a core competency for resilience. And I think it's quite a challenge for parents in this day and age, where we tend to want to protect our kids so much and to be able to do so much for them, that actually sometimes it can be to the detriment of the child. So really allowing them to problem solve and not to jump in too quickly is quite a challenge for a parent. And I'm talking to myself, of course, not to anybody else in the room. Chantal, number 4, you touched on it, but let's talk about number 4.
Yes, I'm going to dive into number 4, but I want to add on to what you said, Philippa. You opened up a very interesting conversation, actually. But the challenge is for us as moms, if we are resilient, then we actually have the energy and the mental capacity to distinguish when those challenges our kids face is the ones we need to step back in, and which of the challenges that in the pandemic, just so many parents I'm talking to saying, it's so unfair that my kids need to go to school with wearing a mask. It's so unfair that they can't even go to a shop or have sports events, so I can hear parents' heart's desire to protect their kids against these things. And then the challenge is, where's the balance? When do I protect them and when do I allow them to go through the challenge on their own? So Philippa, what you're saying for a family unit is so important. And for us as moms, again, a high call on our individual resilience so that we actually have the energy to make those choices. So number 4 is, we said, working with my skills. That's our individual resilience competency. And for the kids or the families, we break it down to say, I have what it takes. So I already touched on this. We have a skills assessment that we do with the young people to help them discover. We have a skills game we play with them so that they can discover what is the talents, the skills, the gifts I actually naturally have that I'm not even aware of. And this is like a first step of self-awareness for them to become aware of, I actually also have something to contribute. I also have something to bring to society. And so for us as adults, we already know that it gives us energy when we can use our skills. That's why I so believe in what Recruit My Mom does, because for moms to still know they have a place of contribution in society, even if you're just working one day a week or few hours a day, however it works for you, It's a place where you are energized by using your skills, right? So for the whole family system, this is so important. And for each family member to know, what skills am I contributing to this family? So the 6-year-old can maybe help do the dishes. That's maybe a skill they can contribute and they feel they have a place in the home. So knowing what my skills is actually the first step for that competency.
I love that. I think that that's very powerful. I think for both children and adults, the knowledge of understanding of what your giftings and what your strengths are is another area that builds both confidence and then ultimately resilience. It's very powerful. It's a very powerful tool to put in the hands of a child for them to recognize what they're good at, because it also stops comparison, doesn't it, Chantal?
Yeah, definitely.
So I do love that. Okay, so that's number 4. I have what it takes. So then where do we go? Number 5?
Yeah, number 5 is discipline. And this is always when I do resilience trainings for adults. Then in the room, this is the place where they just want to close their eyes and avoid the topic of discipline, because we all have a certain mindset around the word, right? Now, you can imagine if you communicate discipline to kids, how they respond. So in general, in society, we don't have a very positive connection to the word discipline, but I want to challenge you on that. As Xpand, we believe discipline is not necessarily about right or wrong or doing good or bad, but discipline in life is actually around having healthy rhythms. So just think about this for a while. If we say someone is disciplined because they really eat healthy, or they are disciplined because they exercise a lot. But we could also say, this person has such a nice rhythm of exercise. This person has such a nice life rhythm of healthy eating. That immediately changes the way you think about eating healthy and doing exercise, right? Which is 2 topics for us as moms. That's a big challenge, because where do you find time for that? But basically, it's if you can have a rhythm that works into your lifestyle that is contributing something positively to you as a person. And so when we look at the family resilience, we call it I am strong. So what is the things I am doing to help me be a strong person? So I need to eat my vegetables so that I can be strong. You know, it's the whole spinach and Popeye type of thing. How do I exercise so that I can be a strong person? How do I sleep well so that I can be strong? So that's how we communicate it then to the kids or to the family system.
And Chantal, just practically, where you've got children or even teenagers, and I know we're going to touch on teenagers in a while, but so self-discipline is not an easy concept for a child. And it's not something that's very easy for a parent to instill in a child. It actually ends up being quite a combative situation. I know I have 2 teenagers, try and get them off their phones, or my son off his PlayStation, and it's quite a tricky situation. So just practically, how do you work with your kids or work with your teenagers to want to embrace self-discipline?
Yeah, good question. You're really putting me on the spot today, Phillipa. Testing whether what I've studied is really practical. So I can answer that from a personal point of view. What we do, just one of the workshops, an example of the workshops we do in our family resilience training is we would draw up a pie chart for the family. And we would say, okay, each individual has their own pie chart, which represents like your time. And go divide this circle now into how much time do I spend at school? Let's say 20% of my time. How much time do I spend doing sports? 10% of my time. How much of my time do I spend on technology? Now they start to think, okay, and they start seeing the circle with the relations, and they realize, oh my word, I'm spending as much time on my phone as I am actually doing homework or at school. Or so they just need to sometimes see a picture of how does my life look? What am I spending my time on? And then the question is, do you want to change anything around it, or are you happy with it? Do you feel this circle as it looks now is really benefiting you? Do you feel you are enjoying life to the full? You are getting the most out of every moment? And then you go into conversations with your kids. If they say, no, I'm actually frustrated because I feel mom is on her phone the whole time. We sometimes get that. They keep us accountable, right? But basically then the power lies in the conversation. So that's one tip I could give, is maybe to say, let's, as a family, let all of us draw up our own pie charts. How's our life looking? What are we spending our time on, our money on, if you want to go go there. What are we eating? How many fruits are we eating? How many takeaways are we having? If you want to have the conversation of, am I drinking enough water? So the circle with the pie chart is actually something practical for me that kids can see. And obviously the smaller kids, you're going to have to help them draw it, talk through it, but they are from, I think, age 5, they are old enough to know that I'm all the time at school, or dad is all the time on his computer, or, so that opens up conversations where you don't have to use the word discipline, but you are still instilling the same principle of discipline. That's what I would say.
I like that. I like making it so practical that children can understand it. So that's really great. And moms, we can understand it too then. Yeah. Okay, Chantal, so we've done 5 and I'm just going to recap. So we've got, I can feel, I have hope, realistic optimism. I can do this because we've recognized our strengths and our giftings. I have what it takes. And then I'm strong. And now number 6, where do we go with number 6?
Number 6 is for us as adults, passion and self-confidence. And I think Phillipa did so well to already connect many of the competencies to self-confidence, right? So when we get to this topic of passion and self-confidence, it makes sense that if you work on the first 5 elements, it will automatically lift your self-confidence. Phillipa said, if you're working with your skills, it adds to your confidence. If you forgive, it adds to your self-image, self-confidence, right? So dealing with the first 5 immediately contributes to self-confidence. But then how do we communicate? It's quite an abstract topic to introduce to children, right? We call it, I know who I am. So a confident child is often the one that says, I know that I like public speaking and I don't like playing sports. Or I know that drawing is one of my talents and I enjoy that and I'm comfortable with that as my skill. So to say, do we know who we are and are we comfortable in our own skin? And how can we help our kids and even as a family system to know, as a family unit, we do have some unique hobbies that other families don't have. We know who we are comfortable with that, and we can enjoy life that way. So it's, I know who I am.
Okay, so I keep putting you on the spot, Chantal, but you keep giving me other questions that I want to ask you. So I know that as I've got older, I've got more and more comfortable in my own skin and more accepting of who I am. I once read a book by Dr. Caroline Dweck about growth mindsets and this I can't mindset versus I can't yet or I will try mindset. So when you've got a child who is very good at, the example is arts, you know, able to use that example, they're very good at arts, they're not good at sport. Would you encourage them then to just focus in on the arts and leave the sport? Or how does that work with, for instance, a growth mindset of I want to develop in those areas? And how do you balance that with a child in terms of just this is who I am and I'm comfortable with this and this is who I'm going to be forever versus actually their skills and growth areas where you could possibly develop into? And should you do that or should you just let the child focus in on their strengths?
Yeah, good question. I can only answer that in my personal capacity because I'm not a child psychologist. So please don't take this and go make a whole book out of it. But my opinion would be to first of all encourage your kids always in what they are good at. What they are interested in will be easier for them to spend time on than forcing them into stuff they are not interested in. So as Xpand, this is a principle we apply in our career guidance program with the teenagers because we believe choosing a career today is not as simple as 5 or 10 years ago. Because of technology, life is changing so quickly. You cannot today decide I'm going to be an accountant and be that for the next 40 years because you don't know how life will look in 40 years from now, right? So instead of us telling them be an accountant, we look at what skills do you have? Oh, I enjoy working with numbers. I enjoy math. And then if you need to tell a teenager to spend time on that, which they automatically enjoy, versus telling them you have to practice cooking, but actually they are interested in numbers. Now there's this whole fight in the family because it doesn't come naturally for me. I'm not interested in that, right? So that's the first, what I would say, the one side of the same coin. And then again, moms, here's a big call on our resilience, because sometimes we do have to challenge our kids to get exposed to things they think they don't enjoy, right? So to say, I know you don't like cooking, it doesn't come naturally for you, but maybe just once a month, me and you can try out a new recipe in the kitchen. Would you be open for that? So you see how you are exposing them to something without forcing them. You are not telling them, you will learn how to cook because one day you need to cook for your husband. So you hear the different approach, but actually you're accomplishing the same results. You want to expose them to things they are not interested in. Let's try out the cricket team, hey? Let's see if you get in. If you don't get in, no issue, but then you've tried. So it's actually the way we are encouraging our kids to try out things that doesn't come naturally. But the spotlight and the biggest focus, I believe, has to be on what does come naturally for them and what does energize them. Does that answer your question, Phillipa?
Absolutely. And just on the you might need to cook for your husband one day is that there are many husbands that are the cooking ones for their wives because their wives don't enjoy cooking. So yeah, you're right. Different strengths, isn't it? Yeah. Lovely. Okay, Chantal, that was great. Okay, so number 7 takes us to our final building block. What is number 7?
Yes, our last resilience competency is relational competence. And this is something in the many resilience trainings I've done with companies and teams over the past 2 years. People say COVID just smashed my relational competency. I'm working on a screen. I'm not physically interacting with employees anymore. I have limited time actually going out to visit family. We cannot attend big group events like churches or socials or weddings. So this is the one competency I've picked up for adults has really been a challenge, is my ability to interact relationally with others. And we can imagine how this affects kids. So just sharing something personally out of my life. We took my 4-month-old baby boy with us to the shops the other day for the first time. And he was so not himself. And I couldn't figure out why he wants to cry all the time. He doesn't want to go to any person. And when I got home, I realized it's the masks. Because at home, we're not wearing masks. Now this 4-month-old is for the first time seeing people without this part of their face. He was actually emotionally shaken. And you can imagine with the older kids, that's why when you think about small grade 1 kids, like having to go to school with a mask. So all of these things that help us to connect relationally has really changed over the past 2 years. So when we talk about relational competency in families and with kids, we call it I need others. So even though I'm on a screen and I think playing my computer games the whole time is enough and Facebook is okay to maintain my relationships, teenagers today grow up thinking that is how healthy relationships work, but it's not the truth. And they need us as families, as moms, to help them to know we still need each other. We still need relationships. We are all relationally created, actually, right?
Yeah, that's so true. That is so true. So I need others, number 7. So Chantal, we've been talking a little bit about teenagers, and I just want to hone in here because when Gareth did our previous resilience talk with Recruit My Mom, there were a lot of questions that came up regarding teenage depression. And we completely understand you're not a psychologist, and so I don't expect you to understand, to be able to speak to it from that point of view. But you do understand resilience and you've done coaching. How do parents of teenagers help teenagers with their resilience, given that all the statistics are showing that they really are one of the most hard hit from a mental well-being point of view at this time during this COVID pandemic? Do you have any wisdom or words or one of these competencies that you would focus in on as parents of teenagers at this time?
Yeah, Phillipa, I think it's so difficult to choose one of the 7 competencies because remember our picture of the system and all 7 strengthen each other, and the social and the structural resources also has an impact. So I could not single out one, but at the top of my head, I would think relational competency is maybe a good place to start. How do we help our teenagers to place themselves relationally within communities again? In the midst of our challenges of social distancing, in the midst of our challenges of being online all the time. I mean, they are going to online school. It's nothing any of us in the room had to do, were forced to do. because we had the options of actually physically being in a room with people. So for me personally, I would say the first thing is for them the relational challenges and how do they engage with friends. I mean, being a teenager, that phase of life is really all about social, right? It's about going to the movies, it's about having friends over, it's about what do my friends think of me. So that's such a crucial, important part in that phase of life. And maybe it would be good for families to really sit together and have discussions around this. So listen, how's friendship looking for you today? You only see your friends on a screen. Is that fine for you? Or do you think there's more? How can we overcome the challenge? And remember, with teens, you can really engage in conversation. We shouldn't make the mistake of thinking they don't know anything in life. They are actually very clever. And then the second thing I would say, I would base on my research for my master's degree. So I did a lot of studies on the influence of technology on our brain and the massive amounts our teenagers need to spend on screens these days, which I know is not always because of parents' choice, right? Because we're doing online schooling. So that is really a big challenge. I want to, if this is the one thing you remember out of today's session, go check the screen time you have in your families. This is like one thing I stand for. If we need to do online schooling and we spend 5 hours on a computer screen, is it really necessary for us as a family in the evening then again to sit in front of the TV? Or could we maybe play a physical board game or go for a walk or do something where we help our teens to get away from the screens a bit? And Phillipa touched on the sensitive topic of my cell phone and constantly being on it. And for many of them, this is the only way they are connected to friends, right? So we need to think, well, how do we help them to find a balance on managing their screen time? I'm reminded of some of the research I did in my master's said the average teenager in America spends 8 hours a day on their phone, like on a screen. That was before online schooling. 8 hours a day is a third of your day, people. That is really a lot of time on a screen. And if you go into the neuroscience on the effect of that on your brain development, it's really not healthy. So our challenge, first of all, again, for our personal resilience, how much screen time do I have as a mom? No, that's ouch. What example am I setting for my kids? How can I have healthy boundaries in our family in terms of screen time, Phillipa? I think that's one thing that's actually draining our teenagers without them knowing it. And they don't know how to put in healthy boundaries. They need adults to help them with that.
Yeah, interesting. It's a challenge. I mean, it really is. I've read a very recent article coming out of the Harvard Business Review on dopamine levels and the dopamine levels that are, the effect of online activities and the impact that it's having on our teenagers, just because the brain is just overloaded with dopamine, and so it needs to try and balance that. So another interesting topic at some stage. Chantal, thank you. So would you just recap for us? It's really interesting would you mind just going through the individual ones and then the I have statements? So if you could just do a roundup for us of this, I'd really appreciate that, Chantal.
Yeah, if there is anybody who's saying, listen, I missed a competency or I couldn't keep track of the 7, you can buy the Resilience book, which is available also online on Kindle. We have it as xpand. So there is a whole chapter on each of the competencies. There's so much more to share. Basically, the 7 competencies for us as adults was reconciled past, realistic optimism, problem solving, working with my skills, discipline, passion and self-confidence, and relational competency. And if we want to translate this to our kids and into our families, it starts off with, I can feel, I have hope, and I can do this. Number 4, I have what it takes, I am strong, and I know who I am. And then the last one, especially today, so important to know that I need others. So that's just touching on the tip of the iceberg, Phillipa, of the resilience competencies.
No, that's very, very helpful. I'm going to ask the people that have joined us today, our audience, if you have any questions, why don't you just pop them into the chat And I'm going to ask Chantal if you have any more questions around any of these topics that we've discussed, and we will just pose them to Chantal. So please go ahead and put anything in the chat that you might want to ask. You might be struggling with something in your family and be thinking, I wonder, whether one of these areas might be of use. So if you do have any questions, please do go ahead with it. Chantal, while we're waiting, don't you want to just tell our viewers today and our audience today about some of the courses that you run at xpand, and also the cost of the resilience book? I know that it can be ordered from xpand, but if you could just let us know. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Phillipa. So the book, let me show you the little picture. So this book is actually not available in the shops because we have our own printing and editing partners that we work with. So we print our books ourselves. Our office is based in Centurion, but we courier the books wherever you are. Hey, listen, I've sent books to places I didn't even know existed in South Africa. So these days, all things are possible. So if you want to buy the resilience book, it goes for 190 Rand, which I think is really not a lot because this is such an investment in your personal life. It's such a nice investment for you as a family. So 190 Rand. And then we also have, I just thought Phillipa touched on the topic of the teenagers. We have a book called The Future Leader. I don't have the price with me. I think it's 170 Rand. So The Future Leader is nice for teenagers because it's got a lot of workshops in it for them to discover their own leadership styles and nice pictures you can see. So if you have a teenager and you feel this is maybe something that could empower them, but you can look on our website. We have all our books available there. I think I'm going to do a quick screen share to explain the resilience workshops we do. Obviously, we do life coaching. I work with a lot of women in leadership and in business on a one-on-one basis to help them really tailor-make their resilience. But we also have workshops. So the first one is what we call a family workshop, which is a 4-hour workshop we do online. This includes your activity workbook. So we give you examples in all of the 7 competencies. How can my family now practice resilience? So nice example I can give you is under I Have Hope, Realistic Optimism. We encourage families to do something like start a gratitude jar. So have like this big jar in your house with little pieces of sticky notes and a pen. And whenever someone is thankful for something, they write it in there and throw the little page into the gratitude jar at the end of the month, or maybe at the end of the year during Christmas. It's so nice to open up that jar and start reading what happened this year that we are appreciative for. So it's like really practical workshops we have in the activity book that you as a family can do. It's 590 Rand per person, or if you want to enroll as a couple, we give you a nice discount of 790 Rand. And then we also, maybe let me say, this 4-hour workshop, we actually have the next one happening on the 6th of October. So if you want to jump on this while the topic is hot, you can contact our office. We have a 4-hour workshop coming up on the 6th of October. If you want to invest in a full day in developing your own resilience, which obviously gives us a lot more time to go into the detail of the 7 topics, then it's 1,090 Rand per person or 1,490 for a couple. So obviously, these days we do all of these workshops online. But if you say, hey, I am in Stellenbosch, for example, and I have 10 families around me that want to do it, then I gladly travel to Stellenbosch. You don't have to convince me. And I can do a physical training for you there. That's obviously a lot more fun. But this is our prices for the online trainings. So Phillipa, is that enough? Do you have more questions on that? Or
No, that's great. That really is great. So Chantal, we don't have any questions from our audience today. But I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us and to share your wisdom. I think that family resilience is such an important topic. I think our families need this, our teenagers need this. And I'm very just very grateful for the work that you do and for the work that xpand does. We have got a question, is that can a mom and child join as a couple? Does that work in your courses?
Yes, we can definitely do that. So I think I see it's Claudia that asked that. Claudia, we tailor make all our trainings. So if you say, hey, we are 5 moms, who want to enroll our 5 kids and the 10 of us want to do an online thing, then I tailor-make the training to incorporate the teenagers or the kids into the session. So definitely, let's count you and your child as a couple. Why not?
Great. That's great. Thank you, Chantal. To all of you that joined us today, I want to say thank you very much. We really enjoy hosting you, and thank you for your time. We do value that. And I'm so grateful to all of you that joined today, and to Chantal especially. Chantal, thank you for being part of the Recruit My Mom family. We value and appreciate you, and yeah, wish you well and God bless you. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Philippa. Bye-bye.